Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. We're going to talk about Google losing a big case. Google is a monopoly part. Well, we're at 4 or 5 now. Yeah, they lost a huge ad tech monopoly case. Judge said that Google willfully engaged in a series of anti-competitive acts. We're going to talk about this in relation to their ad tech, and then we're going to talk about where they're going to go from here. Because, yeah, Google does dominate advertising online, just like they dominate search online. And, the issue isn't, are they too big? I think the issue is, how did they get big? Did they engage in a series of anti-competitive acts? Well, that's what the courts seem to have found, that they ruled against Google. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Yeah, so I don't know. Is it safe to talk about Google negatively on YouTube, a Google-owned platform? Actually, Google and YouTube are kind of like separate-ish entities. It seems like the people at Google don't really know much about the YouTube side, and the YouTube side doesn't seem to know much about the Google proper side. But it is very much a Google world, right? And they lost this case, so let's talk about this. Let's look into this. So this comes from The Verge. The U.S. Department of Justice has won its antitrust case against Google, which accused the company of operating a monopoly in the advertising technology industry. The ruling, which marks Google's most recent antitrust loss, following its search case, says the tech giant's anti-competitive practices in 2 key markets substantially harmed publishers and users on the web. Publishers and users on the web. Now, what's interesting, Geeky is setting this, she's sending this video out, but before I came over here to record, we were talking about it, and she said, there's not going to be anything done about publishers that have been put under by Google by their AI snippets. I mean, that is a more recent thing. It took a couple of years or a year or more for this to kind of work its way through the courts. But, it's going to take a huge network like Valnet, if I can talk about Valnet. Last time we talked about Valnet, we got threatened with legal action. But yeah, Valnet is going to take a company like Valnet going under and pressing charges against Google for shutting off their traffic, which effectively they've been doing. And we've talked about this before, and pretty much every blog, every news site over the last year, I'd say the last 8 months for sure, has seen a massive decline in traffic because Google just doesn't send traffic your way anymore. They want to keep you on their search page so they can throw ads at you and just collect all the money themselves. I don't think this ruling necessarily has anything to do with that, but that could be another case coming down the pipeline if there's like a class action suit or something. Anyway, back to the article. The Verge. Plaintiffs have proven that Google has willfully engaged in a series of anti-competitive acts to acquire and maintain monopoly power in the publisher, ad server, and ad exchange markets for the open web display advertising. U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema, I don't know. For over a decade, Google has tied its publisher, ad server, and ad exchange together through contractual policies and technological integration, which enabled the company to establish and protect its monopoly power in those 2 markets. The judge found Google liable under Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act due to its practices in the ad tech tool and exchange spaces, but dismissed the argument that Google had operated a monopoly in ad networks. They technically don't, but pretty much every ad network uses Google Ads to some degree or another. Even if they sell their own inventory, they're also using Google Ads. So they said, we won half of this case and we will appeal the other half. Leanne Mulholland, Google's vice president of regulatory affairs, said in a statement to The Verge. We won half of this case. Boy, she is definitely spinning this a lot differently than the media is. The court found that our advertiser tools and our acquisitions, such as DoubleClick, don't harm competition. We disagree with the court's decision regarding our publisher tools. Publishers have had many options, and they choose Google because our ad tech tools are simple, affordable, and effective. They choose Google, Leanne, because it's the only game in town for the most part. It really is. I mean, there are other options but they're not great. And yeah, there are other ad networks, but most of those ad networks, 99% of those ad networks, also serve Google ads in addition to their own inventory. I'm just saying, it's a Google world, right? That it is what it is. Similar to Judge Amit Mehta's ruling in Google search case, Judge Brinkema also warned Google over its failure to preserve internal communications. That's interesting. Citing an internal messaging app that deleted records of chats between employees. Okay, that's very interesting. She adds that while this may well be sanctionable, the court didn't need to sanction the company in this case, as it was able to make its decision using testimony and admitted evidence. That's interesting. So they're using like a Snapchat thing? Is that? I don't know. I don't know what they're using internally. Over the course of 3 weeks, the Department of Justice argued that Google illegally monopolized 3 separate markets in the ad tech space, that for publisher ad tools, advertiser ad networks, and the ad exchanges that facilitate transactions. Okay. They also argued that Google illegally tied together their publishers, ad servers, and ad exchange in violation of antitrust law. The upshot, according to the government, is that Google collects monopoly profits at the expense of publishers and advertisers who have a worse experience with no real alternatives. That's just it. Yeah, there are alternatives, but there aren't many. And they're not great. And they're not alternatives that are going to pay anything, right? And that's the thing. If you're a content publisher, if you're somebody that produces content creator, Google really is the only game in town. Unless you're doing direct ad sales or sponsorships or something like that, right? Everybody uses Google. Everybody goes to Google. They've got the best rates. Everybody knows the system. Everybody knows the drill. It's just the way that it is. Google argued the government's whole view of the market was contrived and not based on reality. You need to Google that. Google that, and we will tell you what your reality is. Google's tools help publishers and advertisers make money, and the fact that it has tools in different parts of the market just helps them work well together for the consumer's benefit. Google has legitimate business reasons for its behavior, and the government simply wants to dictate how it can do business, they argued. The decision comes as Google and the Department of Justice are ready to meet in another federal court across the river in D.C. for the remedies phase of the search trial. In that case, the Department of Justice under Biden proposed breaking up Google by spinning off its Chrome browser and forcing it to syndicate its search results. Yeah, Google used to be, this is what's so wild about it, and we've talked about this before, is Google was one of many search engines. And then somehow they became like the de facto search engine. And they are the search engine for most people. A lot of people don't even bother using anything else, right? And that's an us problem. That is power that we gave them, and they abused that power. Google has abused that power in some cases, not always, but in some cases they have. So Adweek has it. They're talking about it. They might have to divest some of their advertising tech. It said Google's publisher tech is hit. Google's advertiser-focused products were not found in violation. They said that the DOJ's claims to establish a distinct market for advertisers' ad networks rulings means Google has monopoly on its sell-side tools, but not on its buy-side tools. Okay. Court documents also revealed the judge found no valid security or quality justification for Google's AdX DFP tie. DoubleClick. They bought DoubleClick a long time ago. I remember when that was a big deal. Like, damn, Google just bought. Yeah, it's been God, I don't know how many years. There we go. I just did a search for it. 2007. They bought DoubleClick. Yeah, so once they bought DoubleClick, it was pretty much they owned advertising on the internet. They bought DoubleClick and they bought YouTube, right? And and I remember those days. We were actually running websites back then, and everything became Google. So before this, though, Japan tried to stop it. Japan orders Google to stop alleged antitrust violations on Android phones. So Japan, after a multi-year investigation, their regulators have taken action against Google. And that was a couple days before this case here in the U.S. The country's Fair Trade Commission has issued a cease and desist order against the tech giant, claiming it may have broken Japan's antitrust laws. So they're getting hit in Japan, too. The order signed Tuesday alleges that Google pressured Japanese smartphone manufacturers to pre-install its apps on Android devices, specifically Google Chrome and the Play Store. A senior investigator speaking to the Japan Times said the practice made it difficult for other competing search engines to even be used on Android phones. Most people won't download another browser, right? Shockingly, most people use Chrome on their desktops, but like they try to push you to Microsoft Edge. And then they keep asking you, like, are you sure? You sure you want to use a different browser? Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm very sure. It said this is a notable first for Japan. It's the country's first antitrust move against one of the major U.S. tech players. And while the timing of the antitrust action coincides with the tariff-related trade talks between Japan and the U.S., a press release from the Japanese Fair Trade Commission states the investigation began in October 2023. So, interesting. Yeah, you have to. Google is being told they have to stop this. They have to stop the practice of pre-installing all their stuff on Android phones, which I don't think they're going to do. Yeah, they'll find a workaround. They'll, you know what I'm saying. So here's the thing. Like, we talked about publishers getting nuked by Google and their AI snippets. I think a lawsuit will happen over that as well, because there are a lot of publishers that were put out of business. A lot of publishers that were put out of business, or people that were fired because there wasn't enough money rolling in. And it was kind of predatory on Google's part to basically build up all this trust of all these publishers and then turn around and scrape their content for AI snippets and then cut them out of it completely, so you don't have to share your ad revenue. That's pretty sleazy. And I think that is going to get them too. I think there will be a lawsuit over that at some point. But again, this one started in 2023. It's going to take a year or two. Even if somebody filed today, it will take a year or two for that to work its way through the system. So this guy from CNBC, what does he think is going to happen? So former DOJ antitrust chief Jonathan Cantor describes how the ad world might evolve after Google loses their case. Okay, this is, again, this comes from CNBC. In a Thursday interview with Jim Cramer, there we go, former chief of the Department of Justice Antitrust Division, Jonathan Cantor unpacked Google's latest loss. He described how the advertising landscape might start to change. Remedies in this case, as well as the search case, are going to be forward-looking in nature. They're not going to deal with the market as it was when the case was filed, but it's going to deal with the market as it exists today and will exist in the future. Will it? Is there going to be a free and open internet? It doesn't feel like there's going to be. It feels like the noose is like getting tighter and tighter and tighter, doesn't it? Again, we're not too far off from what the internet used to be for a lot of people. And it was AOL, it was CompuServe, it was Prodigy. Remember Prodigy? And everybody's in their own kind of their walled garden. And even Elon Musk is guilty of that. He wants you to stay on X. He doesn't want to aggregate links to other people's websites. Hell no. He wants you to publish your stuff directly on X and not get paid shit for it. Yeah, same with Facebook. They all work like this. They do. So he says, this is that Cantor. He says, this means the infrastructure for selling advertising against AI, for example, is going to be highly relevant to formulating the remedies in this case. There are going to be new opportunities for businesses to monetize AI through advertising by other means than Google. Cantor also expressed optimism about the speed of these changes, knowing that sometimes the wheels of justice move at the speed of a Pinto, but this case moved at the speed of a Ferrari. Did it? Did it really? It didn't feel like it did. 2023, it's like that's 2 years, year and a half. Yeah, I don't know. I do think there's going to be another lawsuit over the publishing end of it. He said, advertising is Google's core business. It's one of the most significant costs for the company in general. He said, Google not only illegally maintained its monopoly, but used that power to hurt others in the industry. The entire advertising ecosystem has suffered because of Google's practices, adding that news publishers and other content providers have been overcharged and underpaid. That's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, because they actually they decided to cut off some newspapers, whatever, because they were complaining about not getting paid enough. not getting paid for search results and all of that. Now everybody is scrambling because the advertising revenue is drying up because Google's not sending traffic to a lot of these blogs. And I think this probably is in some way them getting these publishers back. That's what it kind of feels like. I think there's going to be some kind of a suit or something, but everybody is pivoting to paid content, to paywalls, right? You go to a website now, it's constant pop-ups. It used to be pop-up advertising. Now it's like, subscribe to our newsletter, pay us $5 a month to get rid of ads, pay us $10 a month to get, articles plus more articles. It's like, how many subscriptions do they think people are really going to pay? Right? Oh, by the way, go out to our Substack and subscribe. I'm just saying. But no, these corporations, they want people to pay them directly. And that's where the real shakeout's going to be. We're going to find out. If the ad market collapses, we're going to find out which of these websites, which ones are actually sustainable, that people will actually pay them for their content. And the ones that don't get paid directly, they're going to get gone. So there we go, guys. Google suffering a major L today. I'm going to wrap this one up, I think. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.